So let me give you a quick tour at the UrbanCode release Slack plugin. So it's a plugin that lets you send notifications to a Slack channel based on some events that would occur either during a deployment, like the deployment would start or would fail, or a task in that deployment would actually fail, or if you just want to send notifications when you reach a certain checkpoint during a deployment. So you could configure that plugin to do exactly that. The way it works is that plugin will be listening to different events related to deployments or tasks executions, and would send a message that would contain some variables that you will define in the integration. So you would first upload that plugin that you have downloaded from our website. So you would just select that plugin zip file here and upload it. So you will see the Slack plugin here with a real actually version number here if you have downloaded it from the website. Then you can create an integration. So you had new here, you specify the Slack plugin configuration step. You will specify the hook URL. So I will just send you to some documentations on the Slack website on how to create those hooks. But that hook is going to be letting you send some notifications to a specific channel. Then that plugin will listen to specific events. Let's take, for example, when a deployment is started. You are going to be having lots and lots of deployments starting every day, and some of them will be for dev or QA deployments. And if you wanted to not spam everybody with notifications for these lower environment type of deployments, then you could specify the releases and the phases that you want to target those notifications for. For example, maybe you don't want to send notifications for all the releases, but just specific list of releases. So you would specify the name of the release here. You could have multiple names of releases divided by commas, or you could also specify the phase. So it could be only for prod deployments, for example. So you would type prod in there. So here I'll actually do that. I will type prod. So I only want to send notifications for prod deployments. Then here you would have a different events that could occur and would trigger notifications. We have a few for deployments and one only for tasks at the moment. Here you would be able to put some variables in there. So if I wanted to send notifications every time a deployment starts, then you would do this. You would provide some text that correspond to the default message that will be sent, and you can put variables in there like the name of the deployments. It could be the link to that deployment, also the release it's part of, the phase, so here might be prod, the status, is it in progress, is it done, is it failing, so you would get the status of the deployment. And you could also, oh actually no, that was the state, and the status would be more would be actually the status would be the text that you can set to a deployment on top of picking a color, green, orange, or red for the deployment at the top. You can also specify some text that then would be automatically passed along with that notification. You can also pass some other variables for that deployment, like the not. There is a free text field on the deployment that can contain any type of information that could be sent along with the notification as well. Also, we have some variables if you wanted to list all the versions that were part of that deployment. Then you could use this one here, and it will replace, of course, all these variables at runtime. So here, just to illustrate our example, I will just change a few things. So as been created, here has been aborted. Has failed. So we can see the difference when we execute it. And okay, and for tasks here, So you could have also some default message that will be sent every time a task fails. Here I would just put this, which is the name of the task, and a link to the task. So a direct link to that page. And that's it. So I would say that here I will go to a new, I will schedule a new deployment. So here it will be for my release. The phase has to be prod, otherwise it will not send a notification. And I have a Slack plan here that is very simple, just to illustrate that plugin. Okay, so here let's put a few things on that deployment before we actually kick off a notification. So first of all, we just created a deployment. So at this point, we should have received a notification that tells us that a deployment has been created. So there we go. It just took some time, but here we have a deployment that has been created. There's no version selected yet. State is green. Status, there's no status yet, which is that text that we can set on a deployment. And there is the name and a link to it right there. Okay, so I'm gonna create a note here just to illustrate. This is a note. Okay. All right, I will set a status here. All right. Then I would pick some versions. So here I'll just pick one here. Okay. And I'll just approve that deployment. Oh, gate fails here, so let's create an exemption. There's already an exemption there, so let's refresh the page. There you go. You can start the deployment. Here on that deployment, I'm going to add a plugin tasks before we start it. That will be so actually add plugin task. That will be a notification, a specific checkpoint. So here it's gonna be, let's say, so let's execute that in sequential, so we don't trigger that too quickly, and actually enforced. I want to make sure that they don't run in parallel. Okay, so I can illustrate my point here. So here's going to be a checkpoint that our deployment is actually finished. All right. So that task will trigger a notification that will contain some variables that you put in there. So the same way you can, I think if you don't specify the URL here, we'll take the one that is already on set on the integration. And the message here could be anything you want. So here will be this is the data related to that task. So here it could be task name, task description, and a link to it. So task description. Okay, save that. I'm actually going to put some description here. This is more info about this task. There you go. Okay, so here I've not started our deployment yet, but we just set all kind of information, so it's ready to be demoed, as well as we have a task here that illustrates how also we can send a specific notification during our deployment with dynamic data coming from the tasks or the task in that deployment. Okay, so at this point I can approve, I will have to approve the deployment so we can start. I will start the deployment. We should that should trigger notifications to be sent to our Slack channel. So let's give it a second. There you go. Deployment has started. You can see here this deployment is pretty risky. It's yellow, and we have a set of versions that are being sent along with the notification. And there's a link, of course, to it. So if I were to abort that deployment, then we would get the abort message the same way. There you go. Deployment has been aborted, and we get also the same information that provide a little bit of context about that deployment. So can I reopen it? And now I'm going to execute the task here. So it will trigger the notification, which is the next task. You can access some logs around the notifications by going to the command tab here. You will see what it's actually doing. So there you go, it's finished. So if I look at the Slack, let's see what we are going to receive. Oh, by the way, we received the deployment has ended notification. Oh, actually, we did receive this one here, which is, yeah, was received just before, which is our task notification that we just ran here. So here you just saw pretty much how you can define what are the messages, the notifications that can be sent every time something happens during a deployment, either by using a task in that deployment or using events that are triggered automatically when the deployment starts, or deployment is failed or actually finished. So you can trigger notifications, and you can put some variables that provide more information about the context on top of putting some plain text that you want to set as part of the message that will be sent.